Welcome, low ego action heroes and phoenixes. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and welcome to the usually every Wednesday Ask Me Anything Q&A. This is when I am here to take any questions you have. These can be questions about doing work, getting out of work, dealing with conflict, personal stuff. I am here to support you wherever you are on life's and work's paths. You are welcome to ask your question in the chat, which will pop up on the screen, usually with your name. So up to you. Or at the top of the screen, we have dcx.to/q, which is our anonymous question asking universe. And you are welcome to ask questions however you would like. All questions are welcome. Anything that's appropriate, you're welcome to ask, and hopefully I have some expertise and can help you out. While we wait to see if anybody has any questions today, since I didn't get any ahead of time, you are welcome to send them in ahead of time. Just a reminder that our online community is free. You can join it at dcx.to/discord. It is a Discord community. It's completely free. And again, we are there to support personal and work things, whether you're staying in tech, leaving tech, never were in tech. Wherever you are, we're happy to support you. You do not have to be quitting your job to join our community. Okay, we've got our first question. Hooray! Let's copy and paste that. Thank you to unpronounceable person EQVD8RE. I'll just call you EQ for short. Let's put EQ's question up on the screen, and I will then talk about it. Okay, so this says, what are the advantages of doing usability testing of a competitor? This is not something I have done very much, and let's make this font a little bit bigger for those of you on smaller devices, but there could be some reasons to do this. So sometimes we have our eye on a competitor and we think that they are doing something better than we are or ahead of us, and so we're wondering, are they doing it well? Is it really a good match to target audiences? Will it be a match to our target audiences? Maybe who the competitor sells to and who we sell to are the same or they're different. And we're wondering if something like that would work for us. And we're wondering, how can we improve on that? So usually when you're usability testing a competitor, you're not necessarily looking for innovation. You're looking for evolution. You're looking for, how can we do something like that, but make it better by seeing where it's falling short for our target audiences. So you would be recruiting your target audiences, you would drop them on the competitor's website or app, you would give them tasks to do, and you would see where it's not usable, where it's not accessible, where it's not a good match to their mental models or behaviors or preferences, tasks, needs, expectations, collaborations, whatever it might be. And that way, that can feed into, let me just turn my mic down a little bit. That way it can feed back into your team who might be saying, we want to do something like this, but we think we can do it better. Now, of course, you can always just do early generative research, what's sometimes called discovery research or exploratory research, where you can just see how people do this now, whether or not they're using our system or a competitor or anything else. And you can see, how do they do this now? Where does their process work for them? Where does it not work for them? Where's that room for improvement? These are our opportunities. And if we're not really in love with what the competitor has done, this sometimes leaves more room for innovation, because instead of trying to take what the competitor has and make it better or go a couple of steps ahead, sometimes when we really just semi-ignore that and really just look at our audiences and their tasks and needs and behaviors and context and other things, we might end up coming up with something more innovative, or if not innovative, maybe really disruptive. Maybe we can jump way further than the competitor rather than trying to improve the usability of what they have. EQ, am I in the right ballpark of what's going on in your world or what your question was about? I know YouTube usually has about a 40-second delay, so I'll give you a moment to answer that, but tell me if I'm going in the right direction or if it sounds like I've misunderstood the question. And of course, if anybody else has questions, I'm happy to queue them up. Just send them in. If you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you are, send in those questions and I will happily queue them up. Today, usually I do this show for an hour, but today I have a call at the half-hour mark, so we'll just go about another 18, 20 minutes today. So I want to try to help people with whatever questions they might have. EQ, how am I doing? I don't know if I've successfully answered that. And if you're watching and you have an answer as to why it can be a good idea to usability test competitors, shout it out. But I believe in Larry Marine's disruptive research book or some conversations I've had with Larry, I don't think he's a big fan of that. And again, it's something that I've not done often. I've certainly done competitive analyses. I have done a couple of studies where we had people use competitors' websites, but it was mostly to see what we absolutely should not do. What did people really hate about those systems? And if there was anything they liked about those systems, that didn't mean copy exactly what the competitors had. It meant understand what works well for people based on their task and bring that into a fresh design. EQ says, thank you. I was asked to do it, but I don't know why. At what stage should it be done? Usually companies are doing this when they're a little bit out of ideas. When they think, oh gosh, this is a feature we should have. And again, you can tell me at what stage you were asked to do it. But sometimes this is done when companies are like, oh my gosh, we don't have any ideas here. We don't know what to do. We know we want to do something like what the competitor is doing, but we don't want to start from scratch and really innovate something or create something that's fresh or unique to us. Let's just start with them. So again, the rare times that I've done it, it was really just to see how people moved through those other websites, what made sense to them, where they got stuck, what worked for them, what they messed up. Even when they said to me, oh yeah, this was easy. This site is good. I like this. I watched them mess stuff up, make mistakes, not understand what to type into certain fields. And you can learn a lot from that, whether or not you intend to copy the competitor. And we didn't intend to copy competitors. We intended to come up with a completely fresh thing and something innovative, which we did end up coming up with. We came up with something no other website had. And we could tell you that because we saw 20 competitors in the course of doing this. Now, we didn't specifically usability test competitors. We told people, start on Google or start on your favorite site, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to be shopping for this, you're going to pretend you're going to buy this, and then at the end you're not going to buy it. But go shop for this wherever you like to shop. Or Google for it and pick a place where you want to try shopping for this, just as long as you don't really buy it at the end. And we just watched people shop different sites, and sometimes we'd say, okay, now that we saw you shop that site, why not go back to your search results and pick someone else? And sometimes our client was in those search results, and so we got to see people, pick our client. And then we got to hear some of their unfiltered feedback because they didn't even know who we were working for, and we didn't tell them. We just said we have a research project to see how people shop for this, and kind of nobody cared. And so we learned a lot from watching people shop on different websites. We learned a lot about their task. It all goes back to tasks. EQ says, I wonder what the report will look like and how it will relate to our product. That's a good question. I can't speak to how your company will react to that report. Typically, I'm just talking about, sometimes I'm making screenshots of the other sites. I'm talking about where something the site had or did worked well for people, something that the site had or didn't work well for people, where people tended to make mistakes or not understand something or get lost or confused. And really, they should just be clues to us or our designers, what is unlikely to not work, and what might be a better direction to go in. But again, the mistake that a lot of companies make, as Larry Marine will remind you, is that sometimes they go, oh, well, the competitors do this, and now that we've usability tested them, we can see a few places where we can make it better, so we're just going to do what the competitor is doing and make a few things better. And I think that while that's better than not making things better, it's certainly not a leap ahead. It's certainly unlikely to make you a market leader, because if the competitors are looking at you as much as you're looking at them, then they're going to go, oh, wow, oh, they took our page and they made these changes to it. How interesting. Maybe we should try that. Now, they're right there with you. You haven't leapt over them far enough where you're going to really have a market advantage. So the downside is that very often this type of usability testing or research leads teams to just make a small improvement to what the other company or companies are doing. Ana Lucia says something that starts with, let's do it. Sorry, I've got fans blowing on me. Let's do what XYZ is doing. I'll try turning off the fan. Yeah, it can seem like a good place to start. Like, let's just do what they're doing. But we found a few things that didn't work well in our test, so we'll fix those. And we'll just copy them. And again, you can do that, but that doesn't mean you should do that. So that's one of those differences between, can you do it? Yes. Are there reasons to do it? Sure. Does it lead to being the market leader and being far ahead of competitors and really jumping over them? Rarely, because too often people use it as an excuse to just take what the competitor has and make it slightly better based on some usability testing results. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have a follow-up question or other thoughts about that, or challenging questions are welcome. People are welcome to disagree with me. You're welcome to challenge me. So, this is your time to get free help or advice from me. So I want people to talk about whatever's on their mind. Some of you know I'm going for a life coaching certification, so I'm not a qualified therapist, but I'm fully qualified to talk about whatever I'm qualified to talk about. Ana Lucia says at least they could start with needs. Oh, XYZ found some needs in this market. We should investigate this and try to address them too, but copying and pasting solutions from other people seems so lazy. Yeah, and I want to tell a story. Good point. I want to tell a story from years ago. I worked at a company where every quarter the UX team had to stop and go look at a number of competing or other companies' websites and apps to try to get, I guess you'd call it, inspiration. And I remember one time we were looking at Home Depot, which, if you're not in America, is one of those do-it-yourself hardware and supplies and stuff kind of home stores. And we saw something there and we were like, oh, this is interesting. This wasn't there last quarter. Ooh, this is really interesting. And of course, people at our companies were starting to have the little, should we copy that dream? And just as those conversations were ramping up, wouldn't you know, it was already the next quarter. And it was time for us to check everybody again. And we went back to Home Depot's app, I think it was, and that was gone, which means we saw an experiment that probably failed and got removed. So we must also remember that even though a competitor has something on their site, sometimes it's an experiment. Sometimes we're seeing an A/B test. Sometimes we're seeing a random thing somebody decided that we should try, and we don't know how it worked out. We just don't. We don't know if this ended up making the company money, losing the company money, being something that added to sales or took away from sales. We don't know how they were measuring success. So it's really important to remember that just because you see something a competitor is doing, sometimes you're looking at something that doesn't work very well. You're looking at something that is failing. And you might be thinking, ooh, this is good. We should do something like this. But should you? Again, you can, but it doesn't mean you should. So these are really now we're getting into some deeper questions because we can. That doesn't mean we should. Any other thoughts or questions? New topics welcome. What's on people's minds? So let's see. Ana Lucia says, what about if you saw this feature, analyze it, and then do your own research about it? Maybe it can work or not, but just assuming it works. Sure, let's put that up on the screen and talk about that a little bit while I try to not cough again. So Ana Lucia has a good point, as usual. And she says, okay, let's imagine we check out a competitor. We see that they have a particular feature. And rather than just copy it, we say, let's dig a little deeper. Let's see if we can do our own research about it and not assume that it's necessarily good or bad or working or not working for the target audience. Sure, absolutely. Whether you spin up generative research and just try to learn about people's behaviors, mental models, workflows, tasks, unmet needs, etc., and you try to see, now that I understand their unmet needs, would something like that solve it, or does that really go in the wrong direction? Which is a question a lot of startups face, because a lot of startups start with a solution. And then sometimes when they finally hire a researcher learns about people and then has to say, oops, it looks like you have a solution, but it really doesn't solve anything for your audience or the right things, or maybe they find that it does. So you can certainly take that approach, whether that's more generative research and learning about people, solution agnostic, not testing a solution necessarily, or whether that's more evaluative research where you have a concept or a prototype or you're sending people to competitor sites. I think as long as you approach this with a solution agnostic mindset where you're saying, look, we're going to dive into what the competitor is doing. And we're curious where this works and where this doesn't work for our audiences. We're going to recruit our audiences, but we're not going to assume that the competitor has anything that's good or right for our audiences and their needs. Maybe the competitor isn't even delivering something good to their own customers. So we're going to be solution agnostic, and we're just going to try to take a look at who are these people and what do they need? And then in our own solution exploration, consider if what the competitor has or something like it or something completely unlike it is the best way to go. I hope that helps. Neat questions today. Thanks everybody for sending them in. We've got about 5 more minutes. I do have to jump today because of another meeting that got added. So anything else I can cover in the next 5 minutes, I am happy to. If you send in a question to dcx.to/Q, I will always save them and you will be among the first questions answered in the next show. There won't be a show next week because I will be traveling, but there will be a show the week after that. So if I don't get to your question today or you're watching this video later and you have a question, you can certainly ask it in our Discord community. We've got lots of channels where questions are great to ask, including one starting with a question mark that says need help questions, or you can have me answer it next time. Ana Lucia says, it's always interesting to see there are several ways to work and we can always adapt ourselves as long as there is a will to do something properly instead of just being a copy pasting factory. Yeah, and again, there are always ways to do things faster, slower, higher quality, lower quality, more customer centric, less customer centric. We do have options. We just have to figure out which ones are going to work best for our company. I tend to lean towards quality and success. Oh, we have an anonymous question coming in. I will try to answer it in the next few minutes before I have to run to my meeting. Here we go. Okay, so let's put this question up on the board and we'll discuss this, and then I will have to run because I've got 4 minutes. But thank you to people sending in questions. Apologies if I don't get to yours today. Okay, so this question says, sorry, one woman show. Got to copy and paste everything myself. Let me make the font a little smaller so it fits in. And it says, I've been a UX researcher for 10 plus years, and I was recently caught up in a mass layoff, and I've been searching for a job for over a month. This is the worst and hardest job search I've ever had. Any advice? I only get ghosted, but I have a great resume. Join the club. So I'm sorry that you were laid off. That's unfortunately too common right now. 1 month is very, very small in the scheme of job searching. It's not the way it used to be, where those of us who had a lot of experience and a great resume and some nice company names on our resume would be able to find a new job within weeks or a couple of months. Now, many people are going 6 months or more without being able to find that next job. Many of them are being ghosted, or they're going through multiple rounds of interviews only to be turned down later. So, thing one, you are absolutely not alone. Thing two, you might want to check your resume. Even we did a video, you can find it at the Delta CX Hive YouTube channel. We did a video a month or so ago about how Claude made my resume better, not by rewriting it or changing my voice, but by making sure that your typical ATS is going to parse it correctly, and that a typical ATS filter is going to see the keywords that it's looking for. I think that's an important thing to do with AI, because even a great resume, and I thought my resume was great, and when I asked Claude, what does this look like to an ATS like Workday, Claude said, oh, this is unreadable. I had no idea. So double check that. You can do it yourself just by working with even the free version of Claude to work on your resume. Just make sure you start out by telling Claude you don't want to be flattered. You really want to fix your resume, and flattery gets us nowhere. It is the worst and hardest job search for all of us. It is the worst job market I've ever seen in my life. And every month I say that, it is newly the worst and hardest job market I've ever seen in my life. I would say keep going, keep applying, but try not to take it personally if you don't get interviews, or it takes time to find that job, or even if you can't find that job, because that is the reality for so many people right now. My book from last year is called Life After Tech, because for many people, they are done with tech, or tech is done with them. And I would recommend, I'm not trying to sell you a $600 Maven course. This is an $18 book. This will give you a framework and exercises so that you can come up with a plan. What is your plan if you can't find a job for 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, or until you start tapping into your savings, which is going to be very scary for many people? Have a plan. Start thinking about what non-tech work is going to look like for you if you end up among the unfortunately large and growing group of people that are having trouble finding jobs because of layoffs and consolidations and mergers and acquisitions and AI and corporate taxes and all these other reasons why companies are unfortunately happily cutting great people. So remember, it's not you. You didn't do this to yourself. I think that's covered pretty well in chapter 2 of my book. And don't be surprised if it takes you a long time to find a job, because my LinkedIn is full of people with 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience who have not found a job in a year and sometimes more. Ana Lucia says, I also used Claude to check if it was readable. The advice was quite nice, actually. I had no idea I couldn't use text boxes, for example. Great. So sorry that was a little bit of a short answer for me. I'm usually more long-winded, but I've got another call in a few minutes and I'm going to have to jump. So thanks to everybody. Keep sending in those questions, and I will, we'll get the questions in the YouTube description. This will be archived on YouTube, and I will see everybody in 2 weeks for the next show. Thanks, and be well. Good luck.